I am your host, Tia Carol Jones. I am here today with Regine Rousseau, owner and operator of Shall We Wine. Thank you so much for coming to the show today.
Oh my goodness, thanks for having me. It's a new world, right?
It absolutely is. So tell us about yourself and Shall We Wine.
Wow, how much time do you have? So, Shall We Wine, I actually started Shall We Wine back in 1997. And I know you're probably shocked because I look so young, right? Just shake your head and say yes. But we are an experiential marketing company. We're an event planning company. So all of the work that we do is helping our clients grow their brand, but also helping our followers learn about wine and spirits. And we have a lot of different ways that we're able to do that.
And what went into your decision to become a sommelier?
Okay, that's a great question because first of all, let's take a look at the word sommelier. There was an article written, I want to say a few months ago, it was in Wine Enthusiast, and the title was something like Redefining Sommelier. So traditionally, we think of sommeliers as someone who works in a restaurant, who creates wine lists, and who helps guests make decisions about food and wine pairing, typically in the restaurant. I don't do that. I have worked in restaurants, but that was never my goal. So what I did was I went to the International Sommelier Guild, and I received my level 2 certification because what I wanted to do was teach beginners and intermediate students or people who are interested about wine and spirits. So I have not worked in a traditional capacity. Mine is more towards education and marketing.
And why did you want to make beverages and wine more accessible for people?
The truth? Y'all want some tea?
Yes.
Let me tell you, so I started working back in, again, 97, 98. I worked for a distributor. And when you work in the wine industry, you have a lot of sample bottles, right? So what happens is, I'd go out to see a client or two, a customer, and then I'd have all of these wines left over that I couldn't use again. So I made a lot of friends. And I would call my friends and say, hey, I have this bottle of a really cool Napa Cab. Maybe it's a $100 bottle. Do you want to taste it? And they're like, yeah, I want some of that. What I realized, though, is how people got so turned on to the wines that I was introducing them to. And a part of me was like, I cannot believe that so many people have not had access to wine. So for me, making wine accessible is about giving people access to something that was denied, right? And especially when we think about people of color, I didn't grow up with wine on my table. A lot of people in my friend group would say, no, I didn't grow up with wine, right? So I kind of feel like I'm leveling things, equaling things out a little bit, right? Like letting people into a world that was not open to them. So that's it for me.
And how do you make wine selecting less intimidating for people?
So I have a friend, I think her company's called something like, it's just grape juice or something like that, or grapes in a bottle. But it is just grape juice, right? That's all it is. So it's beautiful grape juice. It's art form, right? But let's stop making it something that is so exclusive. So what I do is I bring fun into it. I bring education. So I'm going to teach you about the wine, but I'm going to do it in a way where you're going to have a good time, where you're going to enjoy drinking it, and then you're going to enjoy learning about it, right? As opposed to this kind of stuffy, Fraser. I was like, I am not Fraser. I'm teaching about wine in a way that is authentic to me. And you can tell I can barely sit in my seat, right? I'm like bouncing all over the wall, and I want to make it fun for everyone.
And explain the term experiential marketing and event planning.
Yeah, so experiential marketing is a marketing, but through creating an experience. Okay, so let's take a book, for example. If I was marketing this book to you in a traditional sense, I might have some photos, I might have maybe a video. Experiential marketing is I'm putting the book in your hand and I'm creating an experience based on the book so that you can really feel connected to it. Yeah, and that's what I do with wine.
How did your travels inform your preference in wine and spirits?
Oh, you said travel and I just wanted to cry because I miss traveling.
I know.
I am not used to being stationary. It's too hard. So there's nothing like trying a wine and going to the place where the wine was made. So one of my favorite, styles of wine is champagne. I really love champagne. And for my niece's 16th birthday, I took her to Paris. And yeah, I know, I'm not bawling, but it was a promise that I made to her when she was really young, and she did not forget. She was like, Tia, you said, and I was like, this little girl got a memory. So I had to come up with the funds to make it happen. But it was an amazing trip. She was with me for, I think, 5 days, and then I was like, well, I can hang out a little bit more. And I decided to go to Reims, R-E-I-M-S, which is the capital of Champagne, and to be there, right? To walk through the caves, to taste champagne in the area where it was made changes everything. It makes you feel more connected to the product. You meet the people who are making the wines, and so, again, you feel more connected to it. So that's why I like to travel around wine. It's about seeing beautiful places, but it's really about understanding the entire process of winemaking and why it tastes the way that it does. And it's weird. Like, I went to Provence in the south of France, and I understand the wines of Provence in a way that I never did before, because the wines literally taste like the place. They're fresh. They're open, they're vibrant, and you're like, yeah, of course, this place produces these types of wines, because this is how it feels. So I know, I got all geeky on y'all. I'm coming back, I'm coming back.
Not only do you talk about and teach about wine and spirits, but you also write about them too. What went into your book and your blog?
Yeah, so let's talk about the blog. The blog, we post 2 or 3 blogs a month, and it's about various topics. Some of them come from questions that we've received from our followers. I have a young lady named Eileen Zara. She and I share, and we both write on the blog. Some of it's tips just tips on how to drink wine, best wines to find. My book is a little bit more complicated. Okay. So I'm a poet, always have been a poet, and I created this book of poetry a few years back, and the book was about different people I'd met. And I started asking people, so we were sitting around, it was a group of women, we were watching Sex in the City. I don't know if y'all look young, so you may not have been around during that time, but just in case you were. So Sex in the City, we would get together, 5 or 6 women, watch the episode, make some cosmos, and talk about it. Well, the conversation turned from the story to ourselves. And we were talking about our bodies. And as women often do, we were very critical. Now, we were in our 20s. Everybody looked good. There was no issues. You know what I'm saying? We were healthy. But we started talking about things that we didn't like. And I asked everyone, well, tell me your favorite body part. I wanted to change the conversation. Long story short, based on what everyone told me, I wrote them a poem. Well, years went by, I kept writing these poems, and I had like 100 of them. And they were about body parts, they were about people, they were about all these things. So it's created a book based on that. And then I decided because of my mentors, I decided to take some of these poems and pair them with wine, okay? So why do that? Well, first of all, it was their idea. It was my mentor's idea. I thought it was a brilliant idea. But in doing that, I learned a new way of teaching people about wine and teaching people about poetry. because my poetry is more storytelling. So wine has a story. Each bottle of wine has a story. Each poem has a story. So it was about combining the two stories so that people can feel more connected with wine and more connected to the poetry. That was a long answer. Thanks for holding on.
That was amazing. No, I like when you said that wine is
Has a story?
yes,
Yeah.
wine has a story. Yeah,
It does.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does. And it's
Yeah.
about, that's what I want people to think about. Like, don't be intimidated by this thing, or just don't use it just to get drunk. It's more than that. It
Right.
really is an art form. And if you can take a few minutes and taste the nuances, just like just like a poem or just like a painting, you'll start to uncover all of these things and really listen to the story that's in the bottle. So,
How can people who are not familiar with wine and beverages get started?
well, we have a couple of different things. So, starting in January, we have an educational program that is really geared towards beginners and intermediate. Okay, so January, I think it's 20 something. It's on our website. We're going to start you with the basics.
Okay.
And it's called the 5 elements of wine tasting, where we break down body, tannins, like just the basic information you need. Then every month, we are following one of my favorite wine books. It's called Wine Folly. That's going to be our textbook. But we're going to do big red wines, medium-bodied red wines, light red wines, full-bodied white wines, fruity. So we're going to break it down as she does, as the author does, by category. And every month we'll taste new wines, we'll learn about the grapes together, and it's just going to be a fun process to introduce yourself to wine without the pressure. So that's one thing. The other thing we do is we have a membership, and every 2 weeks, 2 Fridays a month, we invite a guest to come in, and we do wine tastings, we do virtual cocktail making classes. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to become a part of the community and either learn in a very traditional way with a textbook and tasting, or just learn through having a fun virtual event. You're looking at those questions hard.
It's the holiday season, and so what are some good wines for people to try?
Okay, so one of my favorite, I'll send you guys a link to this.
Okay.
I have I do a lot of videos, and not as much as, I'd like to do more, to be honest with you. I love doing videos. But last year I produced a video called Bubbles from Budget to Baller.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you got excited about that one, right? So if you had $5.99, that's real talk, right?
Yes.
Because sometimes that's what you got.
Yes.
I gave you, here's a sparkling wine you can drink for the holidays, and it's really delicious. If you have $250, okay, here's another one that you can drink, and everything in between. So, and the other way you can find, I have a different list on my website. So if you go to my website, the first thing that pops up is a download. So there's 25 sparkling wines on there, again, from budget to baller, because I want everyone to feel inclusive. All right, that being said, one of my favorite wines right now is called Crémant d'Alsace, okay? Very easy to find. There are a lot of different types, but it's a sparkling wine from France, from the Alsace region, and it's about $25.
Okay.
It is so delicious, okay? And a lot of different producers, but if you go into your local store and say, man, I want a Crémant from Alsace, you're going to be able to hook you up.
Okay.
Okay, the other one I would highly recommend, I'll give you some black-owned wineries, because let's do this thing properly,
Yes.
okay? So McBride Sisters has a sparkling rosé that is really wonderful, and there's a local wine shop, Kimbark. They have it, they're in Hyde Park. And Kimbark has, to give them a little bit of a shout-out, a whole wall of black-owned wineries, so that, and spirits, which is awesome. Big fan of Maison Noire. which is Andre Mack. He is a brother. He lives in Brooklyn. He's amazing. But I love his wines. His wines come from Oregon and Washington State. He has a Love Drunk Rosé, amazing. And then I love also his OPP Pinot Noir.
Okay.
Listen, you know what OPP? So those are, so I gave you three. I gave you the Crémant from Alsace, about $25. I gave you Maison Noir. They have a lot of selections, but I love the Love Drunk Rosé and the OPP. And then the McBride Sisters Sparkling Rosé is also really beautiful.
Okay. Great. How has your business changed during COVID-19?
Let me tell you something. If I wasn't a hustler, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. Okay, it is. I was just mentioning I'm interviewing someone to redo my resume and LinkedIn, and we were talking about the change.
Mm-hmm.
So March 11th, I was in New York doing an event. Okay, and 2020 was positioned to be our highest grossing revenue year. Okay, I was about to ball out. Okay, so March 11th, I do this event. I'm in New York, and I start hearing in the news like, you better leave New York, get your butt back home. And my sister was with me, and she lives in D.C. So we ended our trip a day early. By the time I got back to Chicago, which was on the 12th, my entire book of business vanished because everything I was doing was in person, right? Except for some of the videos that I would produce for PR firms, everything was in person.
Okay.
So, because, Experiential Marketing, we were the people that you saw at Binny's doing demos, at Mariano's doing demos, right? So, fortunately, 2018 and 2019, I was doing regular TV appearances talking about wine and spirits. So, when the shock wore off, which, only took 2 days because I was hungry, right? When you're hungry, you ain't got time to be shocked. I was like, well, let me start producing a Zoom show. And I'll get people together, I'll get some of my clients on the show, and we'll see what happens. So my business has changed, I wouldn't say completely because it's still wine and spirits, but the way that I monetize the business now is through corporate events. Okay. We are super busy doing corporate events, virtual cocktail programs or wine tastings. I mean, between now and the 18th, I probably have 20 events. I mean, it's really crazy. Thank you, Jesus. So I still work with some PR firms. But again, to answer your question, I had to pivot very quickly. And what I'd say to entrepreneurs is, look at what you have, right? Like, we all have something. I had something. I had the TV experience. I had lights in my house, right? So I knew I could pop on Zoom and do something. I had my clients who respected me, who I had a relationship with, and I could say, hey, we all need to market. Let's flip it and see if we can market and reach a new audience, via Zoom. So that's what I did. It was, so funny. I was looking at my my numbers. And so this is exactly what it looked like. This was January, where I thought I was going to ball out. It went like boom, like flat. It was a flat line between, April and May and June. And then July, you start seeing a little curve coming up. And then I was doing the dance the other day. I was like, come on, December. I'm like, come on. Yeah. So, I am encouraged. I'm not going to end up where I was last year, but I'm encouraged to continue, and I'm encouraged that I could find new opportunities, and the support system is there. When I say to entrepreneurs, we all have something. I have friends who said, oh, Regine's doing this, and have put me on to their corporations, right? I have people on Facebook, like, if you're an entrepreneur and you're not using social media, shame on you. Because people found me on Facebook, one person told another person, and here I am today. So,
What does a corporate virtual event look like? What is it?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So it's a couple of things. I work with different vendors, so retail stores or cocktail companies that make cocktail kits. So we will ship out, or they will ship out products to our clients and their guests. And then virtually, we will lead them through a demo. So for example, last night we had 13 people. They were sent 2 different kits that has all the components to make a cocktail. And then a mixologist and myself, we were on showing them how to put the cocktail together. Answering, I always like to do a little bit of cocktail history, showing them how to shake it up, and really introducing them to other wine or other spirits. Tonight, I'm working with a winemaker out in California, and we're doing the same thing for a law firm. So she shipped all the bottles to their guests, and then we get on and we go through a wine tasting 101, but also sharing the story of her winery and how wine is made and all of that stuff.
And are you finding that is a good way to expand not only your brand, but kind of the amount of people that you reach?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, within the firm, so the firms that tend to hire me are larger firms. So, I'm not, no secrets. I'm working with DLA Piper. I did an event with Hershey a couple of weeks ago. So within their firms, they have different, or they have other groups that will use services like mine. So once one person finds you, they pass it on to 3 or 4 different people. And it's also great because all of the winery partners that I've had, right, and friends, now I can bring them on to this platform and share their story and help them sell wines and spirits too.
What advice would you give people who want to turn their hobby to a job or a business?
Run. No, I'm just kidding. So listen, I always see this, the old saying, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So that's great if you have a hobby, but if you're enjoying it as a hobby, keep it that way. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And maybe you might, someone, let's say your hobby is making cakes, right? You love making cakes, and someone says, "Oh, could you make me 2 cakes for a birthday party?" And you charge them. That's great. Now, if you want to get into the business of cake making, it's a whole different strategy. And they're both fine. You have to decide which one you want, right? A good cake maker is not always a good business person. So you have to decide if you want to go into business. You have to not just understand your products, but create some strategy around it. So decide what you want, okay? Because I've seen people go both ways. I've seen people say you turned your passion into a business. Yeah, but my passion is business. You see what I'm saying? So if something happened where I couldn't work with wine or spirits, I still would love business. I happen to merge 2 things that I love, and I found a way. But if I didn't love business, I would have no business being an entrepreneur. Yeah, so that's what I would say. Do you have business being an entrepreneur? Are you ready? Because, hey, if you ain't coming to this game with a lot of money, you have to fight. You really do. It's not pretty if you are, like, I'm self-funded. It's not an easy thing to do. So just be prepared and make the decision that is best for you and your family.
Where can people go to learn more about Shall We Wine?
So we have a beautiful website. I'm so proud of our website. So during COVID, we came up with a new website. It's shallwewine.com. And for the month of December, all of our events are free with the exception of one on the 10th, which is a mezcal class, but it's a fundraiser, okay? So this Friday, we have a holiday cocktail class, 6 p.m. Central. You can go to the website, you can sign on, it's free. Pick up your ingredients and make cocktails with us. Actually, every Friday this month, we have a free event. And let me put a plug for the 18th. We have Theodora Lee, who's an African-American winemaker. and she's also a partner at a law firm. Now, come on now. I'm like, oh, and she's a lot of fun. So just go to the website, go to our events page. You'll see all of the events. My contact information is on there. So if anybody wants to learn about our membership program, which is super affordable, it's $25 a month, or if you want to learn about our membership program to learn more about wine, it's $50 a month, and it comes with all of these things. Just hit me up and set up a time for us to chat.
Okay, great. Before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'd like to say thank you. First of all, any opportunity to talk about my business is really appreciated. So I really appreciate you guys having me here. And I'm really here to give people something new, something fun, some new experiences. So yeah, just come and enjoy our community is the last thing I would say.
Great.
Can you
Thank
give us
so
your
much.
website? Your website again?
Sure, it's www. I don't know why I say that. Y'all know it's www. That shows you how old I am. It's shallwewine.com. So, and follow us on Instagram at shallwewine.
Great. Thank you so much.
Remember to make plans.